The fire burns warmly, but casts little light into Mentor's study. The flickering shadows only hint at the vast number of books and scrolls that fill the many shelves. Slowly, Mentor walks over to the fire. Well, my friends, your training is complete. You are not yet true heroes. You have yet to prove yourselves. But first, let me tell you of Zargon. Greetings, Nerdosphere. Bimbo Jimbo here, getting you ready for a very special episode of the Best Damn Nerd Show. Bonus content for you to get you through your week and beyond. And I am so excited for this episode. It is about something near and dear to my and Imperial Commissar Jeff Budd's heart, and that is, of course, HeroQuest, one of the most important games, its uniqueness, the pioneering nature of it, and what it meant to future of board games and role-playing cannot really be overstated. And so with the announcement that Hasbro is relaunching HeroQuest, Jeff Budd and I leapt into action to bring you this special episode of the Best Damn Nerd Show. And not only that, on this very episode, you will hear from the creator himself, the true mentor, Stephen Baker. He is the man that started it all with HeroQuest, and he has returned to HeroQuest for a very special exclusive quest book. So we got to sit down with him and just have an awesome chat about HeroQuest old and new. So you aren't going to want to miss that. Really sit back, relax, and enjoy. This is a phenomenal edition of the Best Damn Nerd Show. So without further ado, it's time for adventure, Nerdosphere.
New card. What do you think?
Get over here! Hadouken!
That man is playing Galaga.
I understood that reference.
You shall not pass!
So say we all.
So say we all. Ride with me.
It's adamantium tasting time, boys.
Well, maybe it's still number one.
All wings report in.
And welcome to your weekly interval. This is the Best Damn Nerd Show. I'm your host, Microphone Alchemist, Bimbo Jimbo. With me tonight, Imperial Commissar Jeff Budd.
Hello.
Greetings, mentor and reader of Lore Tome. This is
I'm also Zargon. I wear many hats.
Yes, you do. This is a distinctly audio-only podcast, as our usual video capture devices are not on hand. So, Jeff, once again, your visual gag is I guess mine too this time, is being lost on everyone.
Yeah. It's a shame.
It is a shame because Jeff...
It's a good one, folks. It's my favorite one yet.
Jeff is sitting behind... In fact, let me get a screen capture of this. Jeff is sitting behind the HeroQuest, I guess, Zargon screen.
Say like the Dungeon Master screen. Yeah, Zargon. I mean, I guess you're not technically the Dungeon Master, but Zargon for North American players, Morcar, if you played outside of North America.
Well, guess what, folks? That's going to be a real problem for you now. We'll get to that. But this is it's a spicy meatball, but we are doing
a spicy meatball, folks.
We are doing a bonus episode. A bonus episode about the game HeroQuest. It is, just something that you and I have talked about, referenced certainly on other episodes of the Best Damn Nerd Show and its importance, how much fun we've had.
Award-winning Shadows of Brimstone episode.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's one of the reasons why I'm so thrilled to do another board game episode, because after just the smashing box office draw that the Shadows of Brimstone episode was, now we get to do another board game episode, this one about HeroQuest, which is, relaunching. If you haven't been following on our Discord, that's where I learned about it, from one Imperial Commissar Jeff Budd. But for those that are not familiar, let's intro HeroQuest a little bit. Jeff, what exactly is HeroQuest?
It's a very basic dungeon crawler board game. You'll find a lot of people will say it's sort of the bridge to something like a Dungeons and Dragons. It's a 2 to 5 player game. One player controls basically all of the monsters and is like the storyteller or the dungeon master, if you will. And then the other players get to play the different heroes and characters in the game, which are the barbarian, the dwarf, the elf, and the wizard. And they all work together to basically go against the monsters controlled by Zargon. But the player who plays Zargon, I wouldn't say you're necessarily trying to defeat the other players. Think of yourself as more a storyteller and like facilitator.
Yeah,
almost like the game ref.
Yeah, you want them to be challenged, but you ultimately want them to succeed in that challenge because that means that you get to continue playing the game.
I'd say it's a good role for like maybe the older sibling or the person who's experienced in the game for sure, or maybe like a parent if a family's playing, just because then you don't have to worry about the competitive streak. Heavy is the crown that the Zargon player wears.
Yeah, well, so we'll get to that in a moment because
small child. I don't know if I was enjoying HeroQuest as much as everybody else.
Jeff, have you ever actually gotten to play as not Zargon?
No, I have only played as Zargon. So like, I've only played 20% of the game.
Well, I hope that changes in the near future for you because I would love to be your Zargon with this relaunch. But the original HeroQuest was launched in 1989. It had expansions like Keller's Keep and Return of the Witch Lord, and then various other ones, some that only released in Europe. I didn't hear a lot of pissing and moaning about those then, but here we are. Here we are in the Facebook age.
Yeah, it's very weird. There's the two expansions that were global, and you mentioned them, Keller's Keep and Return of the Witch Lord, which are basically like direct sequels to what was going on in the quests of the main game. And then there's two additional expansions for the rest of the world and two additional expansions just for North America. And then I that's how I learned that he wasn't called Zargon everywhere, is because one of the expansions for like Europe and Australia and everything is Wizards of Morcar.
Yeah.
And I was like, who the hell's Morcar?
Or what is Morcar?
Like,
why is Morcar?
Why is Morcar? Yeah. And then and then it turned out that it's like that's Zargon. That's how I guess most players, or well, I don't know if most players because it's the American market, but I mean like most of the world refers to Zargon as Morcar. I was like, oh, that's interesting. And those look like cool pieces. And then I'm trying to think, what was the other one? Like the ogre.
Oh
horde
yeah,
or
the
something
ogre
like that?
horde. Yeah.
Yeah. I apologize for not knowing the full name. I've never played it, obviously. And then that one was really cool, but they recycled some of those pieces in the Barbarian quest pack, which was in North America, and then the other one being the Elf quest pack, which those were the two that I really wanted because I liked the additional miniatures. Because Keller's Keep and Return of the Witch Lord, they gave you more of monsters that you already had in the base game because you needed them because you were fielding more monsters on the board. But the other ones had like elf archers, elf fighters. They gave you female versions of two of the heroes, which was very cool, and I think pretty like groundbreaking at the time because it was mostly male characters for what was mostly male players.
Yeah, and that sort of takes us into what they've done now with the relaunch of HeroQuest. But yeah, that other expansion was against the Ogre Horde.
That's it.
Yeah, and it just, for me, you introduced me to HeroQuest, and we talk about this.
I introduced everybody to it.
Yeah, spoiler alert, we have a very special guest on this episode of the Best Damn Nerd Show, by the way. The creator of HeroQuest, Stephen Baker, will be joining us for a sit-down interview. It was a lot of fun talking with him, and we brought up, touched on there the fact that I experienced this as a fully formed adult male. Jeff, you got into it when I don't want to say supposed to, but the more target audience when you were a young kid. What was sort of your introduction to HeroQuest and just how much did you take to it?
I remember seeing the commercial on TV, and then how like all the Toys R Us
broadsode.
Do you remember, like every Toys R Us kind of looked the same layout-wise, and one of the first areas you would go through, I think, was like board games. And I remember seeing like a stack of HeroQuests, and if you are familiar with the board game, or you've seen it somewhere, if I could go back in time, the artwork for the box cover will sell you the game alone. I mean, you should almost own the game just to look at that.
It's a beautiful piece of art.
It really is a beautiful piece of art. I believe done by Les Edwards.
That's correct.
It's phenomenal. It shows all four of the playable characters, the barbarian, the dwarf, the elf, and the wizard, surrounded by basically all of the monsters that you face in the game in this like very cool dungeon. And the barbarian is like facing you as you're looking at the board, and he's swinging his sword. dwarf and the elf are side by side fighting off some other orcs. The wizard is caught in this magic battle with the chaos warlock while the undead are shambling towards him. It is epic. Fans have done so many things now where they've actually rendered and then 3D printed all of the miniatures on the cover where you can recreate that scene. And I'm thinking about getting them on Etsy because that's just like a cool diorama to display. It is gorgeous. That alone, as a kid, I would see that entering Toys R Us every time, and I was like, I've got to get this game. And I eventually got it for my 10th birthday, and I opened it up like that day. The beautiful thing about board games back then is the only piece I had to assemble was the gargoyle, and it was incredibly simple.
Yeah.
Just snap on the head and the wings. And then once you snap it on, it's assembled. You don't have to worry about gluing it or it coming apart.
Different time now.
Like very different time. My other love, Shadows of Brimstone. Very different game.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it is a gorgeous game. Gorgeous furniture. It's so different from every other board game I had at the time, which was mostly like Monopoly and Clue and Risk.
Hey, great in their own right.
So, every single game I just listed is an amazing game, but like the HeroQuest miniatures, geez, it just blew them all away. I was telling James before we started recording that my brother and we kind of just played with the miniatures for about a year or so before we really got into the game. And then my dad was going to be Zargon, started reading the instructions, said the hell with it. He's like, I don't know about this. And like, he's just like, this seems like a bit too much. So a young Jeff Budd had to pick up where he had left off and was like, it actually isn't that complicated, Dad. And then so I had to be Zargon, and my dad played the Barbarian, which is what I was supposed to be. And he had a great time.
I don't know why I'd forgotten that aspect of the story, because in my head I'm just imagining you and your brother playing, but the fact that your dad is the one of the playing characters and you, his son.
Yeah, my entire family played it. Yeah, my dad like gave up immediately. The ass.
That's
and then
incredible.
Once I took on the role of Zarkon, obviously I went through the quest book, which if you're a hero player, you're not supposed to go through because it can reveal secrets that are supposed to be exposed in real time. And so like once I went through the quest book, it's like, well shit, I guess nobody else is going to be Zargon now. And I mean, there are certain quests that I've played it several times with various people throughout the years. I mean, they are sort of ingrained into my memory. And so, I mean, I'll never be able to experience it the way I was supposed to, the way I was destined to.
We'll see about that.
Well, I don't know if the quests are going to be any different, but I mean, I am looking forward to getting to play as somebody else.
Well, now that you made that valid point, maybe I'll just play again.
It's like, Jeff, you already know.
Yeah,
so.
I mean, technically I do too now that I've played through, but it's like, yeah, whatever.
You've played most of the, at least most of the North American quests. Technically, no, I guess you're only about like halfway done though in terms of all quests. But yeah, you've got a lot under your belt now.
I did. I've done what's being re-released, other than the bonus quest books that have never been released before, that are being created newly for this game. Yeah, that certainly, at least you'll get that alone. You will get to truly experience, for the first time as a player, which. I'm looking forward to that very much. But before we get into the relaunch, I just want to ask this question because it is, we've talked about it before, and I think we even mentioned it on the Shadows of Brimstone episode, or certainly in the lead up to it. Is HeroQuest, in your opinion, the greatest board game of all time?
I mean, probably no in the grand scheme of things. In terms of my personal collection and my experience, it is. It is the game that really got me into board gaming. It's the game, along with maybe a couple other things, that really got me into Sword and Sorcery. It'll always have a special place in my heart. It'll always be
your
most
favorite.
Important game in my collection. I'm sorry, what?
Maybe your favorite, I suppose. It's
absolutely my favorite. As much as I love Shadows of Brimstone, there's something about HeroQuest that just puts it above it. Also, the simplicity in the design. I mean, I just feel is like pure elegance, and it is a great way to introduce people to gaming and to just like board games and this hobby in general. And like, I mean, I said, yeah, I played with my dad and my brother. I also played with my mom, who, there's a lot of board games my mom wants nothing to do with. My mom was excited when we would play HeroQuest. She played the dwarf. She played a dwarf throughout her entire HeroQuest career, and she had some pretty cool, accomplishments under her belt as that character. So I mean, it really is like a game for everybody.
Yeah, that's awesome to hear. It's so cool to hear that both your parents were playing while you were running the game. This is just great.
Well, there's no way my mom could have played Zarga. I mean, like she could have, but it's like the experience would not have been the same. I blame my father.
It was your father. The will to DM. So, I mean, I think it is my favorite board game, thanks to you, that I've gotten to play. I do think it's the best board game because, like you said, and we discussed with Stephen Baker, the elegance of the simplicity of it, it is an apex predator in terms of its efficiency, but letting your mind run wild. It is just like, it is that perfect balance of the right amount of complexity and role-playing. It lets you get out of it what you put into it. And, something
That's a great way to put it. People that kind of criticize HeroQuest or compare it too much to like modern day standards, I feel that, if you're not getting enough out of the role-playing experience or anything like that, it's because, you're not putting anything into that. I don't need a game to hold my hand throughout the entire experience. Not to say that isn't fun too, but I don't need it. And I feel that HeroQuest with the right people and you and I playing it together, I think is some of the most fun I've ever had.
Yeah.
I think it just works. And I like that sandbox feel to it.
It is similar to D&D in that respect as well. Like D&D doesn't tell you everything that you need to know to have a great adventure. A lot of D&D exists in your own mind. And that's where the fun comes in. And that's where I think that HeroQuest set great parameters, guidelines, great stories that you get to, great adventures that you get to go through. And they are sort of simple and easy to understand, but you and I, we created these sort of stories within the story that was going on, and sometimes it reflected, how we were feeling about certain things in pop culture and whatnot. And we will definitely get into that later on.
Yeah.
But what was your reaction? Because let's talk about, before we go to break, the fact that it is relaunching via Hasbro and the HasLab. There's two tiers. So they're doing the crowdfunding model, which, some people feel a certain kind of way about when a big company is doing that. But, we've discussed off the air, at least we know it's going to get made. But beyond that, before we get into that sort of aspect of it, what was your reaction when you saw the countdown and then the announcement that this, at long last, is finally happening?
Countdown blew my mind to know that HeroQuest would just be in the news again. That there was going to be something. And I mean, there was a lot of speculation on, social media and the HeroQuest groups that I belong to as far as what that could be. And then there was the Twitter account. And then it became confirmed that it was going to be a board game. And then it was like, well, how is the board game going to be in comparison to this board game? Could it be even just like a straight relaunch or something like that? Which, I mean, I think for the most part, we all knew could not be the case. But I was so excited about the countdown. And then the reveal, I'm one of the people who is incredibly excited about this. The board game is essentially the same. It's just a reskin, I guess you could say, because the miniatures are updated and changed. They had to change a couple of things because this is now just a Hasbro project. Games Workshop's not involved. So things like Chaos and the Femurs, those names had to be removed and sort of, just altered. I'm incredibly excited for this for no other reason than to have a HeroQuest for the next generation. And then when I have kids, I'll be able to introduce them not only to the old game, which maybe I'll save a little bit until they're a little older so that they
don't destroy
are
it.
Safe with the pieces.
Yeah.
But I'll have a HeroQuest that I can play with them. And then maybe just visually a HeroQuest that they might even be more interested in terms of, modern times and what people like. And we can talk about like what the few changes are. One of them is not only do they have a male version of all the characters again, which is how the original game was, they also have a female version of all the heroes, which, I mean, like modern day gaming, I think that's just the way to do it. It's the Shadows of Brimstone model rather than some characters are male and some are female, which I kind of hate. It's everybody gets access to everything.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that is the way it should be. And that to me was such a huge win, in looking at this thing. But like you, when you post it in the Discord, and again, bestdamnnerdshow.com/Discord if you wish to.
That's where all the fun's happening.
That's where it's going down. That's where memories are made and news is learned, where games are played.
And memes are shared.
Yeah. But, when I saw that, I was immediately just, for lack of a better term, aroused.
I was waiting for your reaction more than anybody else's, of course, just because HeroQuest is something that you and I have shared now. James and I have had the same quest going on, or same quest line going on for 8 years.
Yeah.
And it's like that's
for most of our friendship at this point. It's crazy to think about that way.
Wow.
And we do get into this a little bit with Stephen Baker, but yeah, it made such a profound impression on me when we first played. I didn't know what I was getting into when we first started playing HeroQuest, but it immediately ingrained its way into my heart. I talk about this, but I remember vividly because one time I took a bus from Northern California down to Southern California to see you, and the whole ride up, I was just thinking about wanting to get at the Witch Lord or like little tweaks that could be made in the armory or different kinds of potions and stuff. It's just like, it is such an earworm of a board game that just lets your imagination run wild. So when you post it in Discord, because it's also something, you talk about the drama between Games Workshop and Milton Bradley and all this stuff. It's like, why? And I loved that, when you hear Stephen Baker, he brings up sort of the eBay marketplace for this game, because it is a rare game to find nowadays, and it had not had a revision or a relaunch. And so I was sort of miffed by that, why this great game hasn't been sort of revisited and, remastered or whatever for a modern audience. And then when you posted that in Discord, I had no idea that this was even something on the horizon. So it was like an RKO out of nowhere, just, boom, here it is. And then it was, even the countdown was pretty quick.
They didn't give us too much time to sit and speculate, which I think was really cool. Yeah, I mean, the only way I can kind of think of like an equivalent is, like the first time you hear like Hulk Hogan's music play again or something like that. Him returning to WWE. It's like, wait, is that HeroQuest? HeroQuest is back.
Back off!
Back to the ring. Oh my God!
That's HeroQuest music. Yeah, it's like Stone Cold. It's like the glass shattering, like the pop from the crowd, and it's like, there he is, dude. He's just Barbarian's just dealing out stunners to everybody.
It's like, oh my God, it's stunning the Warhammer Quest remake. It's stunning.
Yeah. So with PulseCon come and gone, it had a panel there, moderated by Joe Manganiello. The people involved in the game, Stephen Baker was involved with that. Like you said, they didn't let us really sit in it very long. You just get people excited that something big's coming, and it really couldn't be anything but, I feel like, a relaunch of the board game for having sort of a countdown like that kind of deal. But we're going to take a break. On the other side, we will be interviewing, we will be playing our interview with Stephen Baker, the creator of the original HeroQuest, and he is involved in the relaunch with something super cool that we get to talk to him a little bit about. So we will be talking to Stephen Baker on the other side as we dive into HeroQuest on the Best Damn Nerd Show.
So Tim, we're relaunching the Best Damn Nerd Show, but before we give our listeners any content, it's time to make a couple dollars.
Yeah. And I'm all about selling out. So give me the money.
This episode is actually sponsored by Anchor.fm. We also use them as our podcast host, and they're really great because it's a free platform. They have creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast from your phone or computer. They also distribute the podcast, so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and more. And you can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership, hence this sponsorship read right now.
Well, that sounds perfect because I love money and I love things that are easy. So how do I get involved with Anchor?
It is easy money. It's free money. I mean, you're basically losing money if you don't start a podcast on Anchor.fm. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. You just got to download the free Anchor app or go to Anchor.fm to get started.
I'm on my way.
All right, on with the show.
All right.
Hey everyone, Chris Seglia here, CEO of the Tenno Media Network. I would like to say thank you for checking out one of our podcasts, but we need your help. You can support Tenno in a multitude of ways. By going to our website and checking out our latest podcasts, by buying some sweet merch, joining our Discord, or getting early and exclusive access to all content via our Patreon. Your support means the world to us, and you can find everything on our website, www.10-o.gg. That's ten-o.gg. Thank you again, and now, back to the show.
It's me, Iron Nerd Min-Maxer, Hanzo Gonzo, inviting you into the TennoMedia Arena to see whose nerdiness will reign we're gonna get sued if you will triumph a lotly. Come check out all the battles on the TennoMedia Network Patreon, or you can just skip to the parts where Steve physically breaks something for no reason. See you there.
It's the microphone alchemist Bimbo Jimbo here, of course, formerly the Jedi Master, and we are so happy to be back delivering to you the nerdy content that you need to make it through your Muggle work week. And we want to hear from you, Nerdosphere, so be sure to subscribe, rate, and review us on Spotify, iTunes, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Zunes, or other non-name brand MP3 playing devices everywhere, or however you consume your weekly interval. Whether you agree with me that The Last Jedi was a crime against Star Wars, or that you think that my hosting warrants being mauled by a bear, leave us a 5-star review, make us laugh, smile, or cry in that review, and there is a good chance that you will hear it read on a future episode of the Best Damn Nerd Show. So be sure to rate and review us. It's the best way that you can help the BDNS keep saying it loud and proud for years to come. Welcome back to the Best Damn Nerd Show. Bimbo Jimbo and Jeff Budd here with you on this very special HeroQuest episode. And as we teased before the break, our next guest, he is the creator of the greatest board game ever made, and he stole the show at Hasbro PulseCon when he read aloud the opening of the Prophecy of Telor, which is an exclusive quest book that will be released if, and I say when, that stretch goal is met. The true mentor and master of lore tome, Stephen Baker, everyone.
Hi, everyone.
Thank you so much for coming on.
Oh, thank you. I'm really excited to talk about HeroQuest.
Yeah, as are we, and this has been a long time coming. Quick little order of business at the top here. You are creating an exclusive quest book. It is the Prophecy of Talor. It's one of the upcoming stretch goals for this campaign. So if you go to HasbroPulse.com, you click that HasLad tab to back HeroQuest, which we all encourage you to do. You can pre-order the game today. Go to HeroQuest.avalonhill.com for even more information and exclusive content. So be sure to back it like we have. We are thrilled about this relaunch, but I want to talk to you about your career, how you got your start in this great industry of gaming. How did you get into that?
So I have always been someone who enjoys games, even as a kid. I also collected toy soldiers, and I designed games to play with those soldiers. So gaming has always been a key passion of mine. And when I left college, I went and worked in a bank, which was a very safe thing to do. But at the weekends, I would work at a game store. And an opportunity came up for me to go and work full time at the game store, much to my family's horror. But through that, I got introduced to a guy who worked at Hasbro, or Milton Bradley as it was back then. And they were testing some games, and they invited me to go along for 3 days and look at some games. I did that, and at the end of 3 days, they said, "Why don't you come work here full time?" And that was my beginning.
That's incredible. So that led you down to what would become HeroQuest. But do you have any advice for anyone trying to sort of break into the industry today?
Yeah, I mean, it's fascinating, and it's one of the things that I've really sort of thought a lot about over the past few weeks, where, when I joined Milton Bradley or Hasbro and designed HeroQuest, the world was a completely different place.
Yeah.
Not just in terms of technology, but the infrastructure of the gaming industry. It was nothing like it is today. So, back then there were no university courses for game design, but there are these days. So I think that my advice would be, if you're really keen on games, think about what it is that makes a game appealing when you play it. Think about the whole experience, not just the physical components or the rules. Think about it holistically. And then, explore what you can read. There's plenty of books out there on game design. There are plenty of university courses. There's plenty of opportunity for you to really hone and learn your craft.
Very, very good stuff. And we're, of course, we're going to revisit the original HeroQuest and how that came to be. But, with the relaunch being announced, it met its goal in 24 hours. What was, when did you know that the HeroQuest relaunch was going to be a reality, and what was your reaction to that?
So, as you know, obviously I worked at Hasbro for many, many years, and I left about a year ago to start my own design development company. And Hasbro reached out to me about 3 months ago, and they said, we're going to bring HeroQuest back, and we would like you to help us by writing a bonus quest book that would be part of the relaunch. Of course, I was very sort of thrilled to be given that opportunity. And, it was kind of almost sort of surreal experience going back and writing a new adventure after so many years.
Yeah.
But no, it was great fun.
So, like you said, after so many years, HeroQuest, a relaunch, is becoming a reality. Did you ever sort of lose hope that was going to be a thing? Is it something that you had been pushing for, or is it, that you were happy with where the game had ended? Like, what was sort of your thought process on revisiting HeroQuest?
So it's funny. HeroQuest is undoubtedly the game that people always talk to me about. And I think that there were certainly, fans and companies out there that were thinking about how could HeroQuest be brought back. And, I was thrilled that Hasbro are really sort of making an effort in not only bringing HeroQuest back, but, they're doing a lot with the Avalon Hill brand. I'm just very delighted that they've decided to sort of bring it back after all these years.
Yeah, and you mentioned that the bonus quest book, the Prophecy of Telor. Hearing you read the opening was a great thrill for me, and it took me instantly back. I was like, I am ready to play right now. What was the biggest sort of challenge in going back to write that, and what sort of excited you most, either about the challenge or just the overall experience?
So I think, I wanted to make the most of the opportunity. I wanted to do something that would hopefully create a great experience for those fans buying into the new HeroQuest and coming back maybe to the game after many years. You've got the fans out there who have continued to play throughout all of this time, but then you've got many other people for whom playing HeroQuest has sort of lapsed. They haven't played the game maybe for 10, 15 years or so. So I wanted to make this a quest that would really deliver a great experience for those fans returning to the game. And I also wanted to make sure that it was something that in some way sort of built from the original game. So as I wrote in that little article, it's this adventure really kind of springs from Quest 5 from the original game, Melar's Maze, and it's all built off of that story in the original product.
Yeah, I loved reading just what you had to say about that, and you've mentioned that Hasbro approached you about doing the quest book. Did they approach you about having any sort of role or input in the relaunch beyond that?
So they gave me a kind of like an overview as to what they were doing. Obviously, in order for me to write the quest, I needed to understand, what was going to be in the box, what were the components, the monsters, et cetera, et cetera. And they basically said, look, this is essentially a refresh. It's essentially the same product, brought up to date with more contemporary figures and art and all the rest of it. And so based on that, I said, okay, I'm gonna go back to the drawing board and look at the components. I pulled out one of my old games and basically challenged myself to write an adventure that was a little bit different from those that I'd written previously.
Yeah, and you mentioned the new components and that essentially it's sort of a refresh. So it's essentially the story elements that you created those years ago are going to remain intact. So you knew sort of where you could navigate and shouldn't navigate with this quest book, right?
Exactly. I wanted this to sort of stand apart. I didn't want it to necessarily get into the middle of the story arc between the main game and Return of the Witch King and the Keller's Keep. So this one's is kind of like a little interlude. It's a standalone adventure, but nonetheless it's connected to the main game.
Yeah, and I encourage again everyone, go back the campaign right now so that we can get to experience this quest book, and I have no doubt that it's going to happen. I'm very excited for that. But what about you? What have you thought about what you've seen so far? The new miniatures, the art, and everything like that. What have your sort of thoughts been?
So to be honest, I saw everything the same time everyone else did.
Nice.
Hasbro obviously told me enough for me to be able to write the bonus quest book. But understandably, I mean, they wanted to have this all sort of, under wraps so that they got the full reveal. And so I was there just like everyone else watching the clock tick down. And when it first booted up and I saw it, my thought was just, wow. I mean, I didn't think that they would have executed it the way that they did. I love the fact that it's a contemporary take. It's a sort of a more modern art style. They've obviously got super detailed miniatures in there, and yet it just exudes the look of the original game. It's got the same tonality. It's got the same composition, and I think that for many fans of HeroQuest, this is a fresh version of their favorite game. This is something that you can put in front of, a family or a sort of, some younger players today. And it's got that modern look, but it just echoes the classic game so well. I think they did a great job.
Yeah, I completely agree. And, just how they did it from the start with the countdown, it's something that Jeff and I have talked about for years in terms of like, is this going to happen? And then for them to share that countdown, I was like, oh my gosh, I think this is going to be a reality. And then everything that I've seen so far, even the changes that are understandable that have to be made for, a myriad of reasons, I think they've hit a home run so far. And I love talking about the next generation. Jeff, grew up with the game. Jeff then introduced me to it as a fully grown adult person, and I was captivated by the game. And, looking toward the next generation, one of our co-hosts has a lovely daughter that I'm now so excited to get to share the game with her, hopefully, and so forth. So for this to, just be sort of its continuing on generational legacy is very exciting for me, and I think it's just so important because it's such a great game. Are there plans for you to maybe continue writing more quests as this? I assume this relaunch is going to be a smashing success, and the need for more quests will be forthcoming. Is that something that you would be interested in?
It's certainly something that I'm open to. There's no sort of plans in place right now, but I know the folks at Hasbro well. They know me, and I've certainly said that this was a fun project, and I'm certainly open to working with them going forward.
You talk about how writing the quests was sort of reconnecting with your younger self. So let's go back to the genesis of HeroQuest. How did you formulate that original idea and sort of creation for the early days that became HeroQuest?
So when I first joined Hasbro, I came from more of a sort of a gaming sort of background. I was into the hobby gamings. I did the tabletop gaming, and I spoke to my sort of boss at the time that fantasy gaming was something that Hasbro should be in. That there was this whole world of Dungeons and Dragons out there and role playing, et cetera, et cetera. And my vision really was I just wanted to put role playing in a box. I wanted it to look like a role-playing game. I wanted it to feel like a role-playing game, but I wanted it to be as easy to get into as possible. And being someone who's always enjoyed toy soldiers and tabletop terrain and fighting battles, I love the spectacle. I love the theater. So I wanted the game to be as three-dimensional as possible. I wanted cool miniatures in there. I wanted to have the furniture. I wanted the board to be colorful. And it took time to get there. I mean, it's my early versions of the game were nothing like how it ended up. But the vision was basically role playing in a box.
Yeah.
To get into, and as tactile and as visually appealing as possible.
Now, you talk about the early versions of the game and what it ended up, becoming. Was there anything that got cut that you really wish hadn't, or any sort of maybe dynamics to the game that you had wanted to implement that didn't come to be?
So, my early versions of the game were more complex. But what I found is, I reached out and I worked with some youth groups and some local schools, and we did play testing. And, what dawned on me was, people coming into this fantasy adventure game for the first time, there's a limit to what they can manage in terms of the rule structure and the complexity. So I had to sort of simplify it a lot. The one thing that I had to give up, and it was just a matter of cost, which was the one thing that I would love to have kept in there, is that the game board was originally 3 panels, not 2. So I don't know if you guys are familiar with old games like Axis and Allies and Conquest of the Empire. Well, the original HeroQuest game had that kind of 3-panel board. It was 50% bigger. And the reason why I was kind of, I tried to keep it, but I had to balance it out with all of the cost of the other components. But obviously, the unfortunate thing about not being able to do that is it just reduced the amount of real estate within which I could plan all of the various, adventures. But I think that with the configuration of the board, you still can do an awful lot to make each adventure feel and look different. Despite the fact that I ended up having to have a 2-panel board.
That's incredibly interesting to me. I had no idea that was the original plan, and obviously it changes greatly, sort of the parameters of each adventure, and it just makes me think about, more modern board games like, say, Arkham Horror or things like that, or games that are just like board upon board, expansion after expansion. It's crazy sort of how expansive the board games have gotten today, and I think, you hit on something, the word that I love when it comes to HeroQuest, and I mean this in the most positive way, is the beauty of it in its simplicity. It is a beautiful marriage of role-playing, but accessibility through the fact that it's easy to understand, and it's easy to dive in.
And look, the purpose of HeroQuest back in the day was to be that entry-level product, something that pretty much anyone can get into. You don't have to have gone and do a lot of studying to be the Zargon player. You can be the Zargon player and be as new to the game as everyone else. And I think that purpose is still there. I mean, there are many, many games out there these days. I mean, it's a completely different world, as I mentioned earlier, than when HeroQuest first came to the market. But there's always a need for that first product, that first game that you play. There's always a need that gamers have and families that enjoy games need to sort of say, how do I give that 7 or 8-year-old their first experience? How do I give that novice player their first entry into the experience of fantasy adventure gaming? And, again, this is where HeroQuest isn't more complicated. It's not one of the sort of the deeper games. But if you're looking for a fun, fast entry into the world of a fantasy adventure gaming, it's a good product.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, were you tempted at all when Hasbro approached you, be like, hey, my original idea was actually have an extra panel. If you guys want to add one little bit more to it and do it that way, I can update these quests for you, because that is an interesting sort of concept to me. An even vaster HeroQuest board would be pretty fun to play on.
Yeah, and it was to be honest, it was the initial conversation I had when the folks reached out to me, because obviously I was looking forward to being able to write the bonus adventure, but my first question was, what's changing, is it the same, is there an opportunity to kind of, look at sort of other adaptations or even sort of, extra components around the quest. But, but they gave me a great brief, and they basically said, look, we're refreshing the item, we're making it sort of contemporary, but essentially we're keeping the product the same. And, it was good to hear in a way, because it kind of it made me feel like the strength of the simple gameplay that was originally there still holds up today.
Yeah, and I think it's something that I think people need to be reminded of, because there are some games out there that are great games, but to newer board game players, and certainly younger ones, are almost prohibitive in how complex they are. So I think, like you said, this is a great gateway and entryway for a lot of new board game players. So when did you know, when you released the original HeroQuest, that you had hit on something special?
So it basically sort of started to become obvious that we had something different, even from when we first presented it at Toy Fair in Earl's Court. Again, back in the day, there just weren't any games that looked like this. I mean, most games were sort of more flat, or they had a sort of a large central structure. This was very much the sort of the first of its kind. The quality of these miniatures, the color and the three-dimensionality of it, the theater, even something as simple as just that little screen that kind of echoes the sort of the Dungeon Master screen in role-playing games. And we certainly got a lot of buzz coming out of Toy Fair, and that was ahead of obviously it going into market, and then the sort of the key holiday selling season. So we had good hopes for it, and then as it turned out, it sold very, very well. It won a number of awards in the UK, then it got rolled out through the rest of Europe and the US, and met with similar success.
Yeah, no, it's crazy, and it's enduring success. I mean, look, so the HeroQuest relaunch, it hit its main funding goal in just 24 hours. What does that say to you about just the fact that this appeal is so enduring with HeroQuest?
So, I really hope the fans embrace this. I mean, there's been a sort of a commerce on eBay and everything for old HeroQuest games over the years. I mean, people go to great lengths to try and get themselves a copy or compile a copy from a number of other products. And so I'm hoping that the fans embrace this and sort of see this as, as I say, a fresh version of their favorite game. And a lot of people do have a sort of like a strong passion for this. This was a game that many people played when they were younger, and they've got very vivid memories of playing the game either with friends and family. It's something that is really a part of their childhood and has fond memories.
Yeah, no doubt. Or even adulthood in my case. I remember, visiting Jeff and leaving. Some of my fondest memories of my adult life are playing HeroQuest. And when I wasn't playing, thinking about playing more HeroQuest and what was going to happen. I hadn't played Return of the Witch Lord yet. It was like it was the, when we finished the main game and we had to make the choice of when I visited next time, which expansion to play. And I knew, from what you wrote at the end, it's like, well, we should probably do Keller's Keep first because, the Emperor is in danger.
The Emperor's in danger.
Yeah, exactly. But I really wanted to take on the Witch Lord, but it was just it's just such a rich story that it creates, like you said, those vivid memories. So I'm sure you must get a lot of people both from within the industry and just fans. I mean, you had at PulseCon, you had Joe Manganiello, moderating this panel. He's a Hollywood A-lister, and clearly the game meant a lot to him and inspired other people. What is that sort of like for you? It must be a pretty heady feeling.
It is, and it's very humbling. I mean, I get people all the time, looking me up sort of through LinkedIn, or when people sort of find out that I, designed the game, people always want to tell me their story. They want to tell me about how this was a game that they would play all weekend, how this was a game that they played with their dad, how this was a game that, their friends would, sort of play, even through into college. And I also get a lot of people who tell me that this was the game that got them into gaming, or this was the game that got them into writing, or this was the game that got them into designing games, or got them into film. And that's pretty awesome. I always sort of, as I say, very humble about that. I love the fact that this game was such an inspiration to so many people.
Yeah, it's very cool, and a couple more minutes with Stephen Baker, the creator of HeroQuest, as we are celebrating the fact that it is relaunching. With the success of the relaunch so far, do you think that maybe we could see something similar for, say, HeroScape or Space Crusade?
I mean that's all sort of good questions for Hasbro.
Gotcha.
I've designed a number of games over the years, which I had a sort of a similar sort of profile to HeroQuest, where I basically tried to create a full experience within the box that replicated more complex games elsewhere. And if Hasbro wants to revisit any of them, I would be happy to work with them on those.
Love it. Just a couple more from your perspective. What is the legacy of HeroQuest to you?
So HeroQuest, it's not necessarily the game that I think was the best game that I designed, but it's the game that I think I'm always going to be known for. And I think the legacy of HeroQuest is it was the first. It broke a new mold. It sort of created a game that had a different composition. And, since then there have been many, many, many games that have kind of built on that. So, the idea of a game that essentially gives you that sort of adventuring in a box with dimensionality and cool miniatures and cool pieces and an unfolding storyline. I mean, there are dozens and dozens and dozens of games now that deliver that, but nothing will ever change the fact that HeroQuest was the first of its kind.
Yeah, absolutely right. And before I forget, I'd kick myself if I didn't get to ask you. You mentioned at PulseCon the Barbarian was sort of your favorite character. Can you take us through a little bit sort of the hero creation, and were there any that sort of were on the cusp of making the original game?
So it was basically about, trying to make sure that all of the kind of the sort of archetypal sort of, character types were in there. So you had to have the wizard, you had to have the warrior, you had to have the sort of the dwarf and the elf. Again, from a costing standpoint, I had originally, sort of contemplated additional characters, but again, I needed to save content cost to put more monsters in the box. So it ended up being the foursome.
Were there any that you remember that you sort of originally had in mind for the game that because of cost you couldn't include?
So I did originally have a sort of a ranger type character in there, but in some ways, it sort of overlapped a little bit with the elf and the dwarf. So I just sort of kept it with, the dwarf has got his sort of toolkit, and the elf has got a mix of combat and spells. So I ended up sort of putting the ranger to the side.
Gotcha. Well, you've been incredibly generous with your time, Stephen. We really appreciate it. Last one for you. What is on the horizon for you? What's next for you, Stephen Baker? And where can people find you, or anything you want to plug and promote?
Sure, thank you. You can find me on LinkedIn. If you do any sort of Google search, just Stephen Baker Games, you'll find me into LinkedIn, or it'll take you to games that I've done on boardgamegeek.com. And basically, for the last year, I've been working with my own sort of design development company. I basically left Hasbro to invent games. So I spend about 40-50% of my time doing freelance work for other games companies and toy companies around the world, and then I spend half of my time inventing brand new products. So this is I'm basically going back to what I've always loved. The time was right. I loved my time at Hasbro, but now I'm kind of indulging a little bit and getting back to what it is that I enjoy most.
I love it, and you're the best at doing it. So thank you once again for your time.
Thank you.
That was Stephen Baker. We will be talking more HeroQuest on the other side on the Best Damn Nerd Show.
Hey guys, it's the loquacious anime and manga lover Jahns here. Now I have watched a lot of anime and I've read an abundance of manga, so you would think that I have a pretty interesting opinion on the culture. From classics like Golden Boy and Ghost in the Shell to masterpieces such as Psycho Pass and Gantz. Come and join me as I talk about the world of anime and manga, which has had a huge impact on my life. And who knows, whatever I talk about and recommend to you guys could become one of your favorite series.
Ammo with Jammers.
It's the microphone alchemist Bimbo Jimbo here, and when I'm not verbally super kicking Last Jedi fans on the Best Damn Nerd Show, or fantasy casting The Rock in another movie on the DLC, well, that's when I actually get to talk about wrestling. That's right, come join me in the Wrestling War Room, where I take my mic to the mat and launch my hot takes about the Wednesday Night War between AEW and NXT. The Wrestling War Room, which side are you on?
Hey nerd, Lore Master Tim here, and I've come with a rather indecent proposal. We want you to join in the conversation. If you aren't already a member of our Discord, what are you even doing? You can also find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at TheBDNS. And if you're crazy, odds are we'll talk about it on the show, so get kooky, and above all, let's get nerdy.
Welcome back to the Best Damn Nerd Show. We are fresh